We're honored to welcome with us today our fellow CWR members, Rosana Fernandez, Anne-Marie Gardiner, Caelie Haines, and Laura Lay. Give a big wave. You'll meet them all a little more in depth in a few minutes. Rosana and Anne-Marie are members of the development team for the Sisters of Charity of New York. And Caelie and Laura are communications and development duo for the, I'm going to try to get this right, Atlantic Midwest Province of the School Sisters of Notre Dame. Now, their panel, Communications and Development, Collaborating Through Different Mindsets, will address key issues for collaboration between communications and development professionals. Hopefully, all of us in this room are in that niche area. We will address key issues between communicators and development professionals. Topics to be discussed in this interactive panel include awareness of need, messaging, ensuring the development voice is included in the marketing and messaging in the website. Before we get started, in this part of the program, they'll give you a little more introduction to themselves.
Thank you all for coming. We didn't know how many to expect, but we're glad you're here, and we hope that this is going to be really a dialogue. We don't want to be talking heads up here, and we want to interact with you and hear your stories as we tell our stories. So we're going to each introduce ourselves, and then each member will just take a few minutes to tell you about her role in the organization. I know that Anne-Marie and Rosana work together in development. Caelie is the Director of Communications, and I'm the Director of Development. But we do like each other. And then, we'll throw out some topics, food for thought, questions and discussion. Again, we want to hear your stories. Everyone wants to hear each other's stories and learn from each other. So feel free to throw out, raise your hand, say whatever, okay? And again, you've already met us. This is who we are. Caelie and I are based in Baltimore, and Anne-Marie and Rosana are in the Bronx. Okay, how many of you can relate to this? When we were talking about this, and just through our discussions, it was like, wow, is there really such a disconnect? But we found in talking to colleagues that in many congregations there is a disconnect. We thought, all right, this would be a topic that we could bring to the table to discuss. We're not suggesting who the cat and who the dog is. So just to give us a little idea, by show of hands, in how many organizations is communications and development the same person?
Same department, not same person.
Okay. And in how many organizations does communications report to development? How about vice versa? Okay. How many of you meet on a regular basis? Oh, good. How many of you would say you are satisfied with communications as it relates to your development efforts?
Like fundraising?
Yes. So when I use the term development, I know it's mission advancement, fundraising, development, resource development, whatever you call it, but that's what we're talking about. So one last question, it's not up here. How many of you are just development folk? Oh. How many of you are communications? Oh God, we're done. All right. So we're going to each take just a few minutes and tell you what our roles are. So we're going to start with Anne-Marie.
Hi, my name is Anne-Marie Gardiner, and I'm the Director of Development for the Sisters of Charity of New York. I've been with the Sisters for 8 years, but I've been doing development work for over 35 years. But I started when I was 10. My career has been, coincidentally, with women or men religious congregations. So I have a lot of experience in that realm.
So I'm Rosana Fernandez. I know I was referred to as Rosana, but it's whatever you feel comfortable with. Rosana Fernandez, and I am the Assistant Development Director for the Sisters of Charity of New York. I have been there almost 6 years January, and I've been working in development under the Archdiocese of New York for over 15 years. I mean, I have a baby face, but I've been in for a long time. I did not start at 10, so. My role at the Sisters of Charity has been primarily, I started out kind of data entry, but then I quickly evolved into kind of creating my own role, kind of, right? And it worked out that way. I'm still here, right? And it's my first time at CWR. I honestly didn't even know this existed. And I think it's mainly because I've been stuck in my development world that I didn't know there was a whole world of you guys, communicators, which I feel like we're very outnumbered.
We still like it.
So I'll pass it over.
I'm Laura Lang, Director of Development for Schools at AMSSND. We'll just leave it at that. And I've been with SSND 4 years. Prior to that, I was like 30 years in Catholic school development. And Caelie.
I'm Caelie Haines, and I am the Director of Communications for the School Sisters of Notre Dame, Atlantic Midwest Province. So we were a province, we were one of 7 provinces in the International School Sisters of Notre Dame, or Notre Dame, depending what side of the country you're on. East Coast, we say Dame. Past Chicago, it's Dame. So either way, we're the same sisters. I'm the only one, I think, that hasn't come from a school or religious background. I started out my career in soap operas in New York.
Which could be relatable.
Yes, very much so. So I worked for Soap Opera Digest and Soap Opera Weekly magazine and America Online. And then I moved on to a role as Manager of Communications for the University of Maryland School of Medicine for 11 years. I had worked my way through college as a paramedic, so I had a medical background, so it kind of was a thing, I don't know. And then I ended up here. But I actually do not, it's not totally disconnected. I was taught by the SSNDs in high school, and I was recruited by a group of alumni who knew me and knew my mom, and they saw this position open and said that they wanted me to come. So I did 5 years ago. 5 years ago this week, actually. So that's how I came to be with the School Sisters.
Anne Marie, you want to give us your spiel?
When I first started in development, regardless of the religious congregation I was working with, convincing leadership to invest in a direct mail program or an acquisition program was similar to what I'm facing today with educating the leadership team about investing in social media campaigns, Facebook ads, Instagram, geofencing. And I think largely because of the of leadership not understanding exactly what is meant by that. They know that the development office should be responsible for raising money, It's not about the bottom line, it's about relationships, it's about stories and things like that. So it's difficult, to get that message across when, you have the CFO saying, well, that's wonderful, Anne Marie, but are you going to make your budget this year, So, like I said, in the beginning of my experience, the sisters and sometimes the priests and brothers had the mentality as well, I don't want to beg, it's so expensive, to do direct mail or an acquisition program. And special events, well, again, it's the expense. Having to convince them that their mindset needed to be changed, to this day presents to be an issue. Also in the beginning of my development work, development and communications worked in silos. I did my thing, they did their thing. There was no communication, as to what messages we were sending out, realizing that they should be the same, realizing that they should complement one another. But that wasn't always the case because, again, if a communications person was responsible for congregational information, that really didn't impact what I was trying to do as far as fundraising was concerned. Also, in the beginning of my career, there have been challenges with the communications department as to the differences in what an appeal letter should be as opposed to what an article written for a newsletter or a magazine should be. In an appeal letter, you have to gain the reader's interest in the first 1 or 2 sentences, and then followed by a soft ask, and then get to the basis of the letter. Well, I've had difficulty with some communications people saying, well, no, it's not grammatically correct, or it's your message should be this and not that. But is it right or wrong to have a different writing style? I think more so in the last 5 to 7 years in my particular experience, that kind of respect or understanding of one another between the 2 departments is getting better, but it's still not completely cohesive. And then there's also budget. In the past, communications had their budget, development had their budget, and there was very little overlap in our budgets. This year, for the first time, I'm finding that I'm working with the communications department, our communications department, to see where we can help each other with our budget. If I want 1 or 2 videos to present to show at my special event, why should communications foot the bill for all of that? I think it should be part of our responsibility. But yet, if I need or want a video to help me in a fundraising effort, communications needs to be a part of that. So how can we share that financial burden? So that's some of the things that I'm going through right now. And the message that I think I want to say is that with communications, we just need to keep that door open constantly, keep the dialogue going. So I hand it over to Rosana.
So I think part of what makes sometimes the relationship maybe complicated or a bit strained. I don't know if you guys have this experience, but I have had it in the past. And I think what makes it a little bit strained is that from a development standpoint, right? Because I'm development, so communications, just from the development standpoint, we're looked upon, as Anne-Marie said, as to just fundraise, right? Like just bring in the money but we have to cultivate these relationships and we have to keep our donors engaged, right? And what does that mean exactly? So now development is starting to not only do mail pieces and direct mail, but we're also stepping into your realm now, right? We're starting to get into communications, into digital media, into, making monthly e-newsletters and things like that. So now communications is now part of development in many, our ways of communicating with our donors is through communication. So now how do we kind of merge the two, or kind of how do we work together, especially if for so long our congregations and our departments have been working in silos, like Anne-Marie said, right? So I just wanted to give you like a scenario of something that has happened recently with our departments. How many of us get mixed messages, right? One from development, communications, and our congregation, right? Our sisters kind of get it but don't get it sometimes, or development gets it but doesn't get it, and then communications gets it but they don't get it. You know what I mean? Like we're all like kind of like we each have a little piece but we kind of can't fuse it. So recently our leadership took a trip internationally to be present at at one of the new sisters' vows, her first vows, right, in Guatemala. So Awesome. They go, they take this trip to Guatemala, and their communications director of that ministry sends us over pictures. Great, right? We're on a great path, but it seems simple enough. However, now communications now needs to post this on social media website. The president asked development to now include it in our monthly e-newsletter. So now there's two, here we are together again, right? Who does what, who's writing what? So who's writing this story? We are the lay people. We did not and have never attended a vow ceremony, okay? We are expected to figure it out. So originally we were told one of the sisters that attended, because this would make sense, that she would write the story. However, that didn't happen, okay? So now we meet with communications, and communications decides he's going to write it. He's new, okay? He brought it down to me, you know, what he wrote, and we sat together, and we kind of, I was like, well, you know, I was like, you know, let me get another sister involved as a volunteer, because we don't have the nun speak, okay? I mean, honestly, in a vow, I thought it was kind of like a sister being knighted, right? You get the veil for a you know, your first communion, you get the veil, and the crown. So I thought, I had no clue. I mean, I just never experienced it or never knew about it. So really, I thought they were getting knighted or something. And then they're like, no, there's first vows, there's, you know, last vows, and there's these things in between, and I had no idea. So now, obviously, he doesn't know. So we get the volunteer sister to help us out, and we went with her version of, and her lingo, because we really didn't have a clue. So that is just an example of how the congregation wants something done, but it is important to share with our donors, and it is also important for communications to get the messaging correct. So there, you know, there's like a full circle there. So one of the things that I want to say is that we are separate functions, yes, but we have to face it, we're inseparable. So whether you like me or not, we're working together every day. You know, we're gonna have to make a phone call here or there.
Maybe this is a bit cheeky of a question to ask, but isn't it kind of a waste of resources to have two different teams communicating? I mean, my congregation, we have 5 people, and we all do both. I write grants, I write the annual report, I write all of our press releases.
Okay.
You don't have to train 2 people in non-speak because you have somebody who does everything.
Well, we have also, there's 2 sides of the coin here. We have the fundraising side, development side, and then we have the congregational needs.
We do that too.
Right, so our congregational needs as it pertains to our congregation, that is what's necessary. We need a communications person that's gonna deal with all their congregational things, and then we need development department to handle our fundraising needs. Communications is not gonna be able to, there's just no, it's just the manpower is not there for us to, he has to kind of be in his world, but be in our world, and we have to also be in his world. It's kind of, I mean, that's just what works in our congregation. I mean, you know, I'm speaking in general, but this is just specific to our congregation. And I've spoken to a few people, and some of their congregations run like ours, where you have to have the development and you have to have communications. So, I mean, I'm not sure how it works at your congregation, but just specific to ours.
I write, you know, we write the daily news for the sisters internally. We write all the communications for the sisters that go around. We write their obits.
Well, let me tell you, you're brave. Okay? That's I can only imagine how much how many tasks that is and how much work it takes. But I'm glad that we're spread out the way we are, and we can come together, right? So what I want to give off, you know, I don't want to take up too much time, but there's a few things. Aligning strategy, okay? Kind of, you know, meet, review things, share ideas across departments, have a shared calendar. I feel like that works the best for us. We have our development calendar, we have our ministries that are doing their calendars, and we have our congregation calendar. We have them all together. And it was a master calendar that was created on Outlook, really simple, okay? develop a process together, okay? Meet regularly, just kind of keep discussing things, making sure, and just hold each other accountable. Prioritize certain things. I mean, what we think is important because we're trying to raise money may not be what's important for the congregation at the moment, you know what I mean? Normalize and encourage feedback to each other. Remember you have shared goals, right? The end result is, I think, something that we're all trying to get to, the end result together. And celebrate wins together. I feel like a lot of these departments don't do that. And so that's just my little nuggets for you guys.
And hopefully I can address to what you were talking about. So we're a little different at SSND, but again, development at its very core is communications. We have to inspire, we have to tell the story, we have to, that's what's going to make us successful as advancement people. Because if we're not telling the story and we're not inspiring, then our donors are not going to relate to us and they're not going to continue to support us. But how we communicate is key, and I think this is where this comes in. There are very different voices. There's the congregational voice, which Caelie knows so much better than I do, and then there's the donor voice. And then there's a third with SSND and maybe with you all as well as an educational congregation. We have the alumni voice. Our alumni are very strong. And so how we communicate and relate to alumni is going to be totally different than how we communicate and relate to our bequesters. So what we do 3 multi-channel appeals a year: Lent, Fall, Christmas. We were doing a few more events pre-pandemic, but I don't know about your events, but of late, there are more sisters at the events than donors. So why are we doing these events? So we're, at this point, really analyzing, what kinds of events. They're so labor intensive. I would rather meet with a couple, take them out to dinner, than and ask for a $10,000 gift, then do 2 events and try to raise $10,000 with all that work involved. We also do what's called Oktoberfest. We're in the middle of it now. It's our big calendar raffle. The sisters have been doing it forever. And it brings in about $120,000 a year, so we're going to continue to do that. And then we do grant writing, we have a planned giving program and a major donor program. I have a team of 4. I'm in Baltimore and my entire staff is in Wilton, Connecticut. So that adds a whole nother layer of communication. But my predecessor was in Wilton, Connecticut, where one of our former mother houses was. But we do all of our own writing, social media posts, design, invitations. We produce a bi-monthly electronic newsletter. But everything I do, I run by Caelie. Just for her eye, another set of eyes, of course, but, excuse me, am I using non-speak? Sometimes, and being in development so long, you're talking to the donor, but am I doing it in a way that is really focusing on the mission, focusing on the charism and communicating that along with the ask, which of course in development, the ask is what it's all about. We discuss all the time themes, ideas, stories, and we're not as good as formally meeting together because our offices are right across the hall from each other. So I'm either walking there, she's walking here, and we need to do a better job of every Tuesday at 10 we're going to meet or something like that. But again, when I think about development, communications, it's 2 words. It's voice. What voice do you need to use? And it all depends on who your audience is. And age. Our average donor is 79 years old. So, that kind of changes the game because the majority of our donors still want to write a check, put the stamp on the envelope, and mail it in. They want nothing to do with online giving. They don't want to check the website. They want to get the magazine. But we have a lot more donors now that are doing online giving. Our online giving since the pandemic has gone up 110%. So people are doing that more. So we still have to continue to offer these different vehicles to the different audiences. Okay. When I share something with Caelie, she's very good about saying, no, I don't think Sister Charmaine's going to like that. And you know, if she weren't here, I'd be like, I don't care, I'm doing it anyway.
To clarify, I write all of my provincial leaders' correspondence.
Yes.
So I'm very aware of her voice, I'm very aware of what she's going to say.
Mm-hmm. The other important thing when it comes to development is segmentation. Do you know your donors? What does your database look like? Which really, at this, has nothing to do with the communications department. It has everything to do with knowing your audience. And if you're doing both, then you absolutely need to know your audience. Do you segment your letters? We segment our letters by age, by constituency. So what I'm writing to alums is going to be totally different than what I'm writing to friends or bequesters or a corporation, whatever. So we do different appeal letters and we can segment. Yes, sir.
Could you talk about that a little bit more? Like, is it just 5 different versions of the same letter, or do you do mail merges within the document?
Yes and yes. So it's a little bit of both. And so for example, Christmas is coming up, and that's our largest appeal of the year. So there's a letter that will go to everyone who gave to Christmas Appeal last year, because it will be personalized and it will say thank you for your gift of, you know, last year, to remind them. But then there will also be more segmentation with if they're an alum or if they're a bequester, something that's just for them, to let them know that this isn't just a standard, you know, dear friend. But again, we use Blackbaud Razor's Edge, and so we can segment. It's taken a while. When I started, everybody was a friend. Everybody was a friend. And so we have spent the last 4 years, we added an alum constituency code, and then we connected that alum to the school from where they graduated. And then we can even segment by that. We didn't know that, and how horrible if you're an alum and you've been giving for 20 years and it's not in your record, you know. So you really need to work on your database, and of course having a great database administrator is key. Pay them a lot because they're so good. But we merge, but there usually are 4 or 5 different versions of the same ask.
And that is the thing that I'm not asked to write, because they have the expertise there. They know the database. We'll talk about the different subjects, the different alumni associations we might feature, because that's been a relatively new thing like the past 2 years with the building up our alumni contacts. So we've really been trying to put them forward in these magazines. And then the spring publication is mostly about our jubilarians, because, you know, people love to see the teachers that they had, and we have a big boost for giving in honor of your jubilarian this year and that kind of thing.
How many people receive the magazine? Is it everyone in the database? Everyone who's given a donation?
No,
How
so
many thousand people receive
It used to be maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people, and when Laura came, yeah, it was the last. I'm sorry, I had a development person before Laura, and so when Laura came, that was the first thing that we looked at, because we were just blasting out these magazines that we were paying like tens of thousands of dollars for.
Yeah.
And not getting a return on investment. So when she came, we went and cultivated the list very carefully. So I think we're down now to maybe like 3,000, and it's all people who have given within the past 5 years.
Yeah, and we ran analytics, and my first year we had to inactivate 3,000 deceased people who we were still mailing to, because they hadn't cleaned up the database. And so, yeah, so but it's not all the same either. It depends on what piece it is. We'll say, donors who gave in the last 5 years, or like the calendar. We're really trying to move away from, the sisters have done a calendar for years and years and years. And again, my first year, they mailed 12,000 calendars, and all I could think of was how many ended up in the trash can. And so now it's like, if you want a calendar, let us know, we'll mail it to you, but we don't just blast that out, so.
But I'm just curious, not just for you, but anybody in the room to answer this. We have been debating for the last couple of years whether we should do away with our annual report, or if we should just post the list of our benefactors online.
Don't post them online.
Yeah, you don't want to post them online unless you get their permission, because that's, because they may be annoyed. But with our annual report, it's called the stewardship report. And what, yeah, so what happened was, our stewardship report, our congregation does not like to publish names. And of course, I come from an education background where, of course, you have to publish, because whatever class you're in, that's the class you go to. You say that deadbeat. So, but we don't, but what they were doing was sending the stewardship report out, and then like a month later sending the Christmas appeal out. So I was like, that's just crazy. So when I started, we combined it, and now the Christmas appeal, they get the stewardship report so they can see where their money's going and where it has gone for the last year. It's a financial report and all of that, but we don't publish names at all.
Does anybody in here?
Yes.
Yeah.
We put on the receipt that their name will be published, and then we put the email address if they don't want to publish, so.
So we do that too.
And we just put it in our, once a year, in our February issue of the print mailer, we just put it, annual report is now available online, click here to see donations and the percentages and things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what we post online, like we post ours online as well as sending it out through the mail. Yeah. We post online does not include the names. We don't want somebody scraping them and using our donors.
Yeah, we post everything. We post our magazine on all 4 of our websites,
Mhm.
and we send it out electronically with all those names.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Is it just a PDF that you're sending, or are you sending
Email?
HTML pages online? Or is
It's
it
a big PDF file.
Yeah. And then I'm going to let Caelie talk, but just the final thing, when it comes to really how we relate with development being communications, they say in development, if you're sitting behind your desk 24/7, you're not raising money, okay? You have to be out. The best form of relationship building and communication is still picking up the phone and talking to someone, hearing their stories, or going to visit, with them, which that was really the struggle during the pandemic, that, that kind of in-person visiting just shut down. And so we were on the phones a lot, even just a check-in call, how are you doing? And that is the best form of communications and relationship building, so.
So as I mentioned, I had a different director of development when I came in. She was very focused on the publications, but she was focused on the fact that we had to get these publications out. Like, what was in the publications? What do you want for this publication? Well, I don't know, but we have this publication that we put out every year. And so when I came in, they were relaunching a publication, Blessings, which is our spring publication, that they hadn't done in about 4 years. And there hadn't been someone in the communications director role for over a year. So other people within the mission and ministry team, which is the team that we belong to, they had been trying to do this magazine like on their own. They had a part-time communicator that was working on it. So when I got there, it was about to go to the printer, and they said, "Oh, do you want to look at this?" And I was like, "Yeah, maybe I do." So I looked at it, and I was like, "This is a hot mess. We have to come back." And this is my first week here. This is not when I went out there to represent me. So we did. We had to pull it back for like a week or two, and they were upset because they'd been trying for a year and a half to get this out, and they just wanted it out there. And then, so this was the end of September. And they said, well, by the way, we have this end of the year report, and we want that to come out in November. And I was like, well, it's October now. Do you have an outline? Do you have anything? Nothing was planned. No one knew what would go into this publication. So we did manage to put something out in about 6 weeks, just working with them, saying, what are you doing now? And that's when we really started focusing on our sponsored ministries, because before it was more about donor stories, but they weren't. I noticed, I went back a couple issues, and there were some of the same donor stories, where there were donor stories that weren't that good, and people that were volunteering but weren't necessarily giving money and that kind of thing. So we moved the focus to our sponsored ministries, which has been much better for us, much more successful. At the same time that we were trying to do this thing in 6 weeks, they had also had a new website that was coming up in November. So I came into that as well. And I had not been involved in any of the decisions for that, any of the look, the feel. So I was given a book when I got there. This is our congregational identity, our visual identity. Well, nothing on this website matches visual identity. So then you have to go and fight with, I'm sure some of you have been through all this, and you have to fight with the designer and make it look good. But at the time, we just kind of made it work. And what was good with Laura is she kind of thought out of the box and got us a grant to redo the website this year. So we were able to update this crappy website, and I had to go.
They're filming you.
Sorry. This wonderful website that we used to have, but it's so much nicer now. So we were able to update our website with an advancing mission grant. So it wasn't necessarily something that you would think about for a website, but because we do serve our ministries, all our ministries are highlighted on our website, our sisters are highlighted on our website, we were able to get a mission grant to make this website more functional and more beautiful looking and just a little more attractive to bring donors in especially. And another thing, the last person that I worked with, she knew there was social media out there. She wasn't quite sure how it worked. She had a database person who got names and email lists for her for Facebook. So I said, oh, we could do Facebook ads. Just give me the list. I'm not giving you my donor list. What am I going to do with your donor list? I'm on your team, What am I going to do with your donor list? So she didn't want to give me the donor list to do Facebook ads for her own campaigns for Oktoberfest or for the publications and that kind of. So that was kind of things I was running into. So when Laura was like, I like social media, I know how to use social media. Can we do Giving Tuesday? Can we start scheduling this and that? That's been a big difference for me.
How much do you usually spend on let's say on a campaign, on a social media campaign for like Oktoberfest?
We used to spend $100 every campaign, but since Facebook is changing the algorithms, we don't spend on Facebook anymore.
We don't,
stopped
we
last
just
year.
post weekly on Facebook, or we, Caelie's
We get sisters to post
assistantly,
for us, too.
yeah. So we don't want to jump on what they're doing, so there's a whole calendar and we can see who's posting what when. But we just post, it doesn't cost us anything. Yeah.
But Anne-Marie, you mentioned spending on social media. How much do you spend?
Well, I just got approval to work with a consultant to do more of our social media for our ministries. So our budget is $5,000 per campaigin.
Nice.
But I was able to get approved for that because I said I really don't think it's worth our efforts for an acquisition program, which was costing $50,000 a year. So let's take that $50,000 and spread it over, a 12-month period to see what we can do with social media, because although direct mail is not dead by any means, it's dying. Okay, so in order to engage with younger donors, we have to be where they are. And we have, again, as what I said before, convincing leadership 30, 40 years ago to do a direct mail campaign is now convincing them, let's do geofencing. The investment's not going to be an exact turnaround right now, but down the line, we will start to receive some, if not financial, benefits, definitely volunteer, efforts, We'll just have to see where it goes.
Do you create that in-house or do you use a firm to help with that?
We're working with a consulting group.
Okay.
Did you teach them the term geofencing? Because if I said that to my leadership, they'd like.
Oh,
think I
well,
would-
they've heard it, they don't know what it is. I was explained to them, but if you were to ask them today, what it is.
Yeah, because I wanted to
Something
be
that
like,
Anne Marie
it's a social
said.
media thing, and you don't have to understand it.
And here, the voice comes in again, or knowing your audience, because our older donors, are all about retirement for the sisters. That's where they want to send their support. Our younger donors, and when I say younger donors, I'm talking 50-year-olds. I'm not
Right.
talking 20, 30-year-olds, because they don't have the sisters in school anymore. But they're all about social justice. What are you doing in Haiti? What are you doing with water, immigration, human trafficking? They want to know what the sisters are doing there. So totally different stories to tell.
Do you find, when you both talk about different social media, for us, we occasionally we see different audiences on different social media platforms. Do you target develop your different voices to different platforms? And if so, which way?
I would say yes. We have, we have our social media, our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, let's say the three major platforms. We're soon gonna be on TikTok, we're not there yet, but so those platforms, and then we have our e-newsletter that's on a different platform, right? And then we have our website. I find that to be all under social media. So each voice has to be different. Like our website, prior, we were always asking, how can we measure what's on the website, right? Like what's getting looked at, and the only way is that the numbers don't lie, right? So that you need analytics. I mean, all of that tells a story, so our voices have to change and cater to that. Like our website, if no one's going to our website, how can we change our messaging or our approach to that messaging to cater to that? And for our e-newsletter, same thing. When we first started it, we weren't even getting, how would we know if people are reading it? Okay, they open it, we can get those analytics, but are they trying to read more? So now what we're trying to do is cross-promote our platforms, right? Hey, read more on our website, have them click on it. Now we can see what, if they were interested in that story, now our website gets more traffic. So yeah, we've been catering changing our voice on each platform. On social media, we're kind of more casual, woohoo, the sisters are birthdays today. You know what I mean? It's a little more casual. And then on Twitter, it might be something about social justice, or on Facebook, it might be a link to one of our kind of sister, I shouldn't say sister, they're all sisters. One of our maybe the Federation or something like that. We share some of their information, we're cross-promoting each other. So yeah, our voices have to change for each platform.
One thing you could do too, if you're not already doing it, is, we post generically pretty much on Facebook with AMSSND, but we joined all of our school alumni association pages, or we requested to join, and then we can post individually to those schools. And so if a sister passes, we can post to their alumni association. We weren't doing that before. Or different events, or if we're going to be in the area or whatever. So again, that takes time. Fortunately, my associate director manages that part of it, but even just finding the alumni associations on Facebook, that was really something.
Is that?
Yeah.
So our congregation doesn't have a formal development program. We're not a congregation that has schools, which that's a natural area to have development. So how do you work on the mindset of, we don't really need to fundraise because we have what we need at least for completion, or we don't want to compete with our sponsor ministries. We want to just direct everyone to sponsor ministries or to the schools rather than fundraising for ourselves.
Yeah,
So-
I don't do fundraising for our sponsored ministries. They all have their own. But yet,
we do give a percentage to our sponsored ministries.
yes, so what I raise.
From the money that we raise.
Exactly. And then I also either meet with or work with, if they need help, any of the development folks from the sponsored ministries. But, I would say, is retirement, are you good for retirement? I mean, is, again, your audience, if they weren't in schools, how did they get to know the sisters? And what stories can you tell? And what are they doing in retirement? And, do you want to support them in their retirement? I mean, if they don't need the money, God love you, but who
I
doesn't?
think we have a great case of, elder care and retirement to be able to fundraise.
Absolutely.
So I think the case is there, but it's how do you work with the sisters, the leadership team, to actually convince that, yes, your operating budget could be really helped by fundraising, or this is how much you're spending on it. So how do you, is there anyone that has any suggestions on how to talk about this?
Yeah,
You just, if leadership is not on board with you with that, I don't think there's anything you can do, because they have to be on board. They have to be committed to that cause. If they feel that they have a very healthy retirement fund, that they don't need that fundraising, there must be something you could fundraise for, whether it be another ministry or whether for them to partner with another ministry to support efforts. But if your leadership team's not on board with fundraising for them, I don't think there's anything that you can do.
Or showing them when the money's gonna run out, I mean, it will eventually run out if they don't keep, supplementing that.
We kind of did a soft ask to our leadership. So I went to them and I said, look, these sisters are passing away. I'm hearing all these great stories. I hear them at their funeral. I don't hear them beforehand. So I said, let's start telling these stories. At the end of these stories, we put a little thing. If you would like to donate to sisters that you knew or to sisters who had an impact on your life for their retirement purposes, and it's as simple as that. And they bought into that because they wanted to tell these sister stories. They're like, oh yeah, sister so-and-so did this and this, and we've never written anything about her. Okay, let me go interview sister so-and-so. We'll put it up on the website and people will know. And it was just a little line at the bottom. If you would like to donate in honor of this sister or others you've known, click here. And so it wasn't, that we had really pushed for this hard campaign. It was.
I think we have time for one more question.
Yeah.
You have a real, did you have a question?
I have the same exact question.
Oh, okay.
The fear that they have about fundraising, I think it's giving you that gift.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too, but that's really where the education comes in. You as a director have to be able to say to your provincial leader, I'm going to present my case, and this is what I would like to see happen. And if they don't, they don't. But you can't assume that that they shun all fundraising. You have to be able to at least go and tell your story.
What do you do, how can communications and development work together when you're in a situation where the sisters, with your donors, know a particular sister, but not all the sisters, and when that sister passes away, you lose that donor. And you have a lot of donors at the age where they're dying.
Right.
How can you help them? How can you help each other engage the donors?
Well, do you have in your database the relationship between the sister and the donor?
I don't know what she has in her database.
See, that's so we are trying to, if someone gives something in honor of, in memory of a particular sister, especially in honor of, it goes in the record and it goes in the sister's record too. So that way, I said, oh my gosh, Joe Smith, I didn't know she knew Joe Smith, but he just gave $10,000 in her. Well, then you don't leave it at that. Then it would behoove you to try to reach out to Joe Smith yourself and take sister with you. Thank you. I want, she would love to, I don't know if any of you are using any of the BombBomb. It's pretty inexpensive, but you can record 30-second videos and text or email them, And so we had a group of alums in New Hampshire, and they loved one of our sisters who couldn't get up to see them. But we went and recorded her, and she did this little, and we took it to lunch with them and showed it to them, and they were just beside themselves. And so now we're doing that more and more. But
What's the name?
Bomb, B-O-M-B, B-O-M-B. There are several different platforms, but Bomb is pretty inexpensive, and it's very easy to use. Yeah.
So something we do, we take a, we don't do the bomb, but our sisters are a little more shy, I guess. But what we do is we have one of our sisters volunteers who actually sends out, we have like memorial cards and we have prayer cards. And so she will read the intentions and say, you know, this is from the Sisters of Charity are praying for you, and specifically the person that they had in their intention. And that's been a real hit. Like usually the relationship stays, and they end up, and we could even do a tribute, you know, create a tribute in Blackbaud, and this person ends up giving like every year for that sister that they so, you know, dearly cared for, and that's how we kind of keep the relationship going as well. So just an idea.
I know we're really running out of time.
I know, Lisa, I wish we had more to
But you know, use the connections with the schools too, if you have schools. That's been our big thing with the alumni associations, reaching out to them. Because if sister so-and-so dies, but maybe John also was in second grade with this other sister,
Yeah.
he'll still give in honor of St. Rita's School or whatever. You know, and even if he passes away or his wife passes away,
Yeah.
you have the one donor, his wife passed away, but he still gives in her honor
Exactly.
to the school, or, you know, to our sisters in honor of the
So
school.
I know this doesn't happen to any of us, but I just love the cartoon. But again, how to ensure focus versus frustration. Have regular meetings if you are different. Work together during budget and planning times. We're right, so much of what we do, you know, we work together, but I don't plan my goals with communications. I should. You know, I don't look at my budget and say, okay, we're going to do the magazine, but am I paying to print it? I'm paying for postage. Who's paying this? And align your goals, and of course, absolutely stick to
And make
deadlines.
development pay for everything.
And they have more money ever.